The soft clatter of dishes echoed in the quiet kitchen as you stood by the counter carefully cutting fruits for breakfast. The smell of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air, mixing with the warmth of the morning sun filtering through the curtains. Jungkook walked in, his footsteps were light yet purposeful. He stopped by the doorway for a moment before stepping closer. "Do you need help?" His voice was gentle, as if he was afraid of startling you. You looked up slightly surprised. "Oh, I'm just making breakfast. You don't have to. I want to." He interrupted softly, reaching for a knife. "Can I cut these for you?" You hesitated but nodded, passing him the knife. He stood beside you, close but not imposing, carefully slicing the apples into thin pieces. His movements were precise, like he had done this many times before. "Unha liked them this way," he said, glancing at you. "She eats them faster when they are cut small." A small smile formed on your lips. "She really is a smart kid." Jungkook chuckled. "Too smart sometimes. She asked me last night if you were happy here." You blinked, caught off guard. "She did?" He nodded, placing the apple slices on a plate. "I told her you're still adjusting, but I promised we would make sure you feel comfortable." He hesitated before adding, "I meant that. You're not alone in this." Your fingers tightened slightly around the spoon you were holding. The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. "Thank you, Jungkook," you murmured, meeting his gaze for a moment before looking away. He gave you a small nod, respecting your space. "Breakfast smells good. Let's eat together." You exhaled slowly and nodded. "Yeah, let's eat." It had only been a few days since you moved into Jungkook's home as his wife. The marriage had been arranged not out of love but out of circumstances. He was a single father dedicated to his little daughter, and you had been pushed into this for reasons that still felt overwhelming. Jungkook, however, had been nothing but patient. He never once made you feel forced into your new role. He never demanded affection or forced a connection. Instead, he observed, he listened, and he always made sure you had space to breathe. First, it had felt suffocating living in a house with a man you barely knew and a child who was still warming up to you. But Jungkook's kindness, his steady presence made it easier. Slowly you began to settle in. The house that once felt foreign started to feel less intimidating. And Unha, his little daughter, was the unexpected light in all of it. Your gaze flickered to Jungkook as he carefully set the table, his every movement filled with quiet consideration. Maybe this marriage wasn't as impossible as it had once seemed. Later that evening, you were sitting on the living room couch, flipping through a book while Unha played on the carpet, her toys scattered around her. Jungkook sat across from you, scrolling through his phone but glancing up every so often to check on Unha. "Papa?" Unha called out, suddenly looking between you and Jungkook. "Can I ask something?" Jungkook put his phone down. "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" Unha turned to you with bright, curious eyes. "Can I have milk?" she asked innocently. "Of course, baby. I'll go and get..." She cut you off. "No, not that milk. I want your milk, mommy." Your breath hissed and the room fell into a short silence. Jungkook's eyebrows lifted slightly before his expression softened, understanding her childlike innocence. Clearing your throat, you smiled, suddenly feeling nervous. "Oh, sweetie, I don't have milk like that, but I can get you some from the kitchen." Unha tilted her head. "Really? But moms give milk, right?" Jungkook let out a quiet chuckle and reached out to ruffle her hair. "She's right, but not all moms. It's okay, baby. Let's go get you some warm milk, alright?" Unha nodded, beaming. "Okay." But instead of rushing to Jungkook, she turned to you and reached for your hand. "Mama, come too." Your heart clenched at the name, the way she said it so naturally, without hesitation, as if there was no doubt in her mind who you were to her. Your eyes flickered to Jungkook, who was already watching you carefully, his gaze warm, encouraging. He wasn't surprised, just silently observing, letting you take the moment as you wished. Your fingers curled around Unha's tiny hand, squeezing gently. Of course, baby, let's go together. Unha giggled happily and tugged you towards the kitchen, her small feet padding against the wooden floor. Jungkook walked beside you, his shoulders brushing against yours in quiet support. As you reached the kitchen, Unha tilted her head up at you. Mama, do you like milk too? You chuckled at her innocent question. I do, sweetheart, but I think you like it the most. She nodded eagerly. Milk makes me strong. Then glancing at Jungkook, Papa always says so. Jungkook grinned, leaning against the counter. That's right, strong like a little bear. Unha giggled, then turned back to you. Mama, will you always be here? You froze for a moment, the weight of her words pressing into your heart. She had called you Mama so naturally, so confidently, as if she had never questioned it. Jungkook, who was watching quietly, didn't interrupt. He let you handle this moment, his gaze filled with something unreadable. You knelt in front of Unha, brushing her hair back gently. Of course, sweetheart, I'm not going anywhere. I'll always be here for you. Unha smiled brightly, wrapping her tiny arms around your neck, hugging you tightly. I love you, Mama. Tears pricked your eyes as you hugged her back, your heart swelling with a warmth you had never felt before. I love you too, baby. Jungkook walked over, setting the milk bottle on the counter, watching the two of you with a small, proud smile. His hand found your back, rubbing gentle circles. She means it, you know. She already sees you as a mother. You looked up at him, emotion tightening your throat. And I already see her as my daughter. Jungkook's gaze softened even more as he leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to your forehead. Thank you. He whispered. You shook your head. No, Jungkook, thank you for giving me a family I never knew I needed. Unha pulled back, giggling. Can I have my milk now? You and Jungkook both laughed, the warmth between the three of you growing, solidifying. It hadn't been long since you married, but in this moment, you knew this was your family and you were home. Jungkook had never imagined himself loving again, not after what happened 4 years ago, not after losing the woman he had once promised forever to. His first wife, Hanyul, had been his world. They were young and in love, dreaming of a future filled with laughter and happiness. When she told him she was pregnant, he had felt like the luckiest man alive. They had prepared together, decorating Unha's nursery, choosing baby names and planning a life that would now never come to pass. The day Unha was born should have been the happiest day of their lives, and in a way it was. Jungkook had never felt such overwhelming joy as when he held his newborn daughter for the first time. She was tiny, delicate, and had Hanyul's beautiful eyes, but fate was cruel. Complications arose soon after childbirth. Hanyul, who had been weak from a difficult pregnancy, suffered from internal bleeding. The doctor rushed to save her, but within hours, Jungkook found himself holding her hand as she whispered her last words, and then she was gone just like that. Jungkook had been shattered. He had barely slept, barely eaten, drowning in grief while also trying to be a father Unha needed. He would hold her hand for hours, staring at her tiny face, wondering how he was supposed to do this alone. The first year passed in a blur of sleepless nights and silent mourning. The second year, he forced himself to function for Unha. The third year, he started to smile again, but only for her. By the fourth year, his family and friends urged him to think about moving forward, but Jungkook never entertained the thought. Marriage, love, it felt impossible. He had loved once, and he had lost. He wasn't sure he had it in him to go through that kind of pain again. Then you came into his life. He hadn't planned for it, he hadn't been looking for it, but somehow you slipped past the walls he had built. At first he had been distant, not wanting to betray the love he had lost, but you weren't trying to replace Hanyul. You were just you, kind, patient, and full of warmth. Una had clung to you almost immediately. She was drawn to your presence, to the way you made her feel safe. Jungkook noticed how she smiled more, how she laughed brighter when you were around. He noticed how his own heart felt lighter too. He fought it. He told himself he didn't deserve this, that love wasn't meant for him anymore. But love isn't something you choose, it chooses you. And when Jungkook finally let himself embrace it, he realized he wasn't betraying his past. He was honoring it by allowing himself to live again. The day he decided to marry you wasn't a grand revelation, it was quiet. He had simply looked at Unha, then at you, and thought, this is home. And so, after 4 years of believing he would never love again, Jungkook opened his heart to you, to a new beginning, to a future he never thought he would have. Months passed and life with Jungkook and Unha settled into something so natural, so warm that it felt like you had always belonged there. Unha had fully embraced you as a mother, never questioning it, and Jungkook, he had become the most loving, attentive husband you could have ever imagined. Every morning he made sure you were comfortable, stealing soft kisses before work. Every night he held you close, whispering sweet nothings until you fell asleep. One evening you sat in the bedroom staring at the little pregnancy test in your hands, your heart pounding, 2 lines, pregnant. Your breath hitched as emotions crashed over you. Joy, fear, excitement, nervousness. Would Jungkook be happy? Would he be shocked? You already had Unha, but this was different. This was a child growing inside you, a part of both of you. The bedroom door creaked open and Jungkook walked in, rubbing his neck. Long day. He sighed, I just want to. He paused when he saw you sitting there, your face pale, your hands gripping the test. His brows furrowed. Baby, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick? You opened your mouth but no words came out. Instead, you held up the test with trembling fingers. Jungkook's eyes flickered to the test, then back at you. The room was silent, the air thick with anticipation. He blinked. Is that? Are you? His voice wavered, but for the first time you saw pure, unfiltered shock in his expression. You nodded slowly, biting your lip. I'm pregnant. Jungkook's lips parted, his breath hitching. For a second he didn't move, didn't speak. Then, in the blink of an eye, he was kneeling in front of you, cupping your cheeks. You're pregnant? We are having a baby? Tears welled up in your eyes as you nodded again. Yes. A shaky breath left Jungkook before his face broke into the biggest smile you had ever seen. Oh my god. He let out a breathless laugh, his thumbs stroking your cheeks as he kissed you, once, twice, over and over. We are having a baby. I can't. This is the best news, baby. This is amazing. A tear slipped down your cheek and he wiped it away immediately. Are you okay? How do you feel? Do you need anything? Are you scared? You laughed softly. I was nervous, but seeing you this happy makes me feel like everything is going to be okay. Jungkook rested his forehead against yours, breathing deeply. Everything will be perfect, I swear. I'll take care of you. I'll take care of our baby. You don't have to worry about anything. Just then, Unha's little voice called from the hallway. Papa, Mama, what are you doing? Jungkook chuckled and pulled back, his eyes still shining with excitement. Let's tell her together. You smiled, placing your hand over your stomach. Okay. Jungkook crouched down in front of her. Maybe we have something very special to tell you. Unha looked at both of you curious. What is it? You exchanged a look with Jungkook before smiling down at her. Sweetheart, you are going to be a big sister. Unha blinked, processing the words, then her eyes widened. Really? Then without hesitation, she pressed her ear against your stomach. Hello baby, I'm your big sister. Jungkook chuckled, ruffling her hair. It might take a while before the baby answers, sweetheart. Unha looked up at you with excitement. Will the baby love me, Mama? Your heart melted as you cupped her face, kissing her forehead. The baby will love you so, so much, just like we do. From that moment, Jungkook took care of you even more. He refused to let you lift a finger, always making sure you ate well, rested, and felt loved. Now, in your last month of pregnancy, you found it difficult to move around as freely, and Jungkook had become even more protective. He hardly let you do anything, always by your side, ensuring you were comfortable. Unha too never left you alone. She followed you everywhere, talking to the baby in your belly as if he could understand her. One evening, you were lying on the couch resting your swollen feet while Jungkook was sitting beside you, gently massaging them. Unha climbed onto the couch, settling beside you with her tiny hands on your belly. Mama, is my baby brother sleeping? She asked, her big eyes filled with curiosity. You smiled, brushing her hair back. Maybe, sweetheart, or maybe he's just resting. Unha pouted and leaned closer. Wake up, baby, I wanna feel you move, she demanded in a sweet voice, pressing her ear against your belly. Jungkook chuckled, shaking his hand. Baby, he's not a toy. He'll move when he wants to. But as if on cue, the baby kicked, making Unha gasp in surprise. Her eyes widened in excitement and she giggled. He kicked me, Mama. She turned to Jungkook, bouncing on the couch. Papa, did you see? The baby is saying hi to me. You and Jungkook laughed, watching her excitement. You took her small hand and placed it gently over your belly again. He loves you already, Unha, just like we do. Unha beamed, placing tiny kisses on your belly. I love you too, baby brother. Don't worry, I'll share all my toys with you. Then she looked up at you seriously. But not my favorite teddy. He can have the second favorite one. Jungkook smiled, pulling her into his lap. That's very generous of you, sweetheart. Unha nodded proudly before turning back to your belly. Baby, you better come out soon, okay? Mama's tummy is so big now, and Papa says she needs to rest a lot, but I miss playing with her. Jungkook's gaze softened as he looked at you, gently tucking a strand of hair behind your ear. You hear that? Even our little princess wants you to rest. Maybe now you'll listen. You playfully rolled your eyes. I do rest, Jungkook scoffed. If I didn't literally carry you to bed some nights, I wouldn't believe that. Unha giggled, clapping her hands. Papa is strong. He can carry both of you and the baby. Jungkook smirked, flexing his arm. Of course, I have to take care of my queen and my little prince. You felt your heart swell at his words and you reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. I love you, both of you, and our little one. Jungkook leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to your lips. And we love you more. Unha gasped dramatically. Me too, I love Mama the most. You laughed, pulling her into a hug. My little sunshine. The three of you stayed like that for a while, Jungkook's arms around you, Unha snuggled between you both, her tiny hand still on your belly, waiting for another kick from her baby brother. It was in these quiet, love-filled moments that you realized there was nowhere else in the world you would rather be. The day had finally come. Pain rippled through your body as you clutched Jungkook's hand, your breath coming out in a heavy pants. The hospital room was filled with the sound of beeping monitors and the encouraging words of the nurses, but all you could focus on was the sheer intensity of bringing your child into the world. Jungkook was right beside you, his grip firm but gentle, his other hand smoothing the damp strands of hair away from your forehead. You are doing amazing, baby, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Just a little more, okay? I'm right here. Tears welled up in your eyes at the tenderness in his gaze. Even in this moment of pain, you felt nothing but love. Love for the man who had given you a home, love for the little girl who had already claimed your heart, and love for the life you were about to bring into the world. And then, after one final push, a loud, piercing cry filled the room. A sob broke from your throat as you collapsed against the pillows, exhaustion washing over you. The doctor held up your baby, a tiny, wriggling miracle, and in that instant, everything else faded. Jungkook let out a shaky breath, his eyes locked onto the newborn as if the world had stopped turning. His grip on your hand tightened before he let go, stepping forward as the nurse wrapped the baby in a soft blanket. He was silent, completely still, until the nurse gently placed the baby in his arms. The moment Jungkook looked down at the tiny face, his whole body trembled. His lips parted but no words came out, just a breath heavy with emotion. His eyes glistened As he finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper, "Our boy." You watched him, your heart swelling as tears slipped down your cheeks. Jungkook, the man who had already given you so much, was now standing before you, holding your child like he had been waiting for this moment his entire life. He turned to you, his gaze filled with indescribable love. "Baby, we did it." A sob broke from you as you reached for the baby, and Jungkook carefully placed the tiny bundle in your arms. The weight of your newborn against your chest was overwhelming, filling you with an instant, unbreakable bond. Una, who had been anxiously waiting outside with Jungkook's mother, finally rushed into the room. Her big eyes widened as she took in the sight before her. "Mama," she called out, running to the side of the bed. "Is the baby here?" Jungkook lifted her up gently so she could see better. "Yes, sweetheart. Look, this is your little brother." Una's tiny hands clutched into your hospital gown as she leaned forward, her gaze fixed on the baby's tiny face. "He's so small," she whispered in awe, like a baby doll. You chuckled, brushing a gentle finger over her cheek. "He's real, my love. Your baby brother." Una's face lit up with a proud smile. "I'm a big sister now." Jungkook pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Yes, you are, and the best one." Unha giggled before reaching out carefully, her tiny fingers stroking the baby's little hand. The newborn let out a soft coo, and Unha gasped, "Mama, he moved. He likes me." You and Jungkook laughed softly, watching the beautiful connection forming right before your eyes. A few days later, you finally came back home, settled comfortably on the couch. You cradled your baby boy in your arms as he nursed, his tiny hands curled into little fists against your skin. The warmth, the bond, it was something indescribable, something that made your heart swell. Ona sat beside you, her big round eyes fixated on her baby brother, watching every movement with intense curiosity. She rested her chin on her hands, blinking up at you. "Mama?" she finally asked. You hummed softly, adjusting your hold on the baby. "Yes, sweetheart." Unha leaned in, whispering as if she was sharing a big secret. "Do you think he likes the taste of your milk?" You choked on a laugh, glancing at Jungkook, who was leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, an amused smile on his lips. You smiled, gently stroking Una's hair. "I think he loves it, baby. It's what makes him strong and healthy." Una scrunched her nose in deep thought. Then, after a pause, she hesitantly asked, "I never had it before." Your heart melted instantly. The innocence in her voice, the pure curiosity, it was too sweet to ignore. You looked at Jungkook, who looked a little overwhelmed. She was right. She had spent years without a mother's love, without the warmth and comfort that most children received from birth. It wasn't just about milk, it was about closeness, security, and feeling nurtured in a way she had never known before you entered her life. Your free hand stroked her soft hair gently. "You know, Unha, love comes in so many ways. Even though I wasn't there when you were a baby, I love you just as much as I love your little brother." She nodded but still hesitated before looking up at you with wide, innocent eyes. "Mama, can I try too?" Jungkook, who had been watching quietly, blinked in surprise. His gaze met yours, filled with understanding. He knew this wasn't just a request. It was Unha seeking comfort, wanting to feel connected to you the way her baby brother was. You took a deep breath and then, with a soft smile, adjusted your hold on your newborn. "Come here, my love." Unha climbed onto your lap, careful not to disturb her baby brother. She was older, but in this moment she was just a child, longing for the warmth she had missed for so long. Gently you guided her to latch, and she hesitantly suckled, her small hands resting on your arm. She pulled away after a few moments, her lips curling into a small smile. "It's warm," she said softly. Then she turned to her baby brother, who was still latched, and giggled. "No wonder he likes it so much." Jungkook let out a soft laugh, running a hand through her hair. "See, your mama gives the best comfort, doesn't she?" Unha nodded happily before snuggling into your side, resting her head against your shoulder. I love you, Mama. Tears pricked at your eyes and you kissed the top of her head. I love you too, my baby. Jungkook reached out, wrapping his arms around both of you. Our family is perfect and thank you so much for bringing happiness in our lives, YN. You looked down at the two little souls in your arms, one who had just entered the world and one who had been waiting years for this kind of love. You had never expected this life, but now you wouldn't trade it for anything, and in that moment, surrounded by love, you knew this was the happiest you had ever been.